Thanks, Jordan. Okay, like we talked last night, really proud of those guys in that football game to be in that fight for 60 minutes and come out on top. Some really, really great efforts in that game. Some guys stepping up into roles that they haven't played in previously, which I was really proud of those guys as well. So need to build off of it. Wanted to split that series with the Steelers last week. We have an opportunity to split a series with the Bengals this week, so that'll be our sole focus. With that, I'll take any questions.
All right, first question will go to Scott.
Hey Kevin, you got any injury updates on Harold or Wyatt or even Carson?
Yeah, nothing. All are rehabbing, all are progressing. Can't rule anybody out just yet.
And then I saw your locker room speech. Just why were you so impressed with what Carson was able to do fighting through that injury?
Yeah, I just think I watched it during the game and making plays and pushing himself and trying to get loose in between series and that type of thing. And uh, just it's a emblematic of the effort out there, and I appreciate that, and I think it speaks well about him. It speaks to his teammates as well.
Thanks.
All right, next we'll go to Chris.
Hey Kevin, I just want to ask you about Shador and when you went back and watched the film, what was some of the your biggest takeaways, especially with some of the throws like the one pick that back across the field and the throw to Herbig that what Herbig nearly picked.
Yeah, I think the big message for all players and definitely at the quarterback position is to learn from every single play. There are plays where you have to tip the cap to the defense and recognize they're in the right coverage or they made a play. There's other times where you let it rip and you see the right coverage and you're playing on time. So I just think there's so much to learn from. Obviously, the two giveaways we can learn from both of those plays. They tipped the ball and got lucky. The first one we can live to play another down on the second one. And again, just those are all plays where we have a young player that will learn and get better from those plays.
Also, you lose Harold early in the game. How much do you think that might have impacted Shador a little bit? And knowing that Harold's been such a consistent guy for him to target during his time as starter.
Sure. Obviously, Harold's a big part of our offense and um, definitely a player that Shador trusts with the football. We trust all our guys that are out there, and we made adjustments through that game without having Harold for the majority of it, but uh, there's definitely a comfort level with Harold and the quarterbacks.
Thanks.
All right, next we'll go to Mary Kay.
Yeah, Kevin, I was going to ask about Shador too. So just wondering, where do you feel like he has shown the most growth since he first stepped on that field against the Ravens that day?
Yeah, I wouldn't get into specifics, Mary Kay, other than to say, we work very hard in this building on player development at all positions. And for quarterbacks, like we've talked about all season long, there's always going to be ups and downs. And we just have to learn from each one of these opportunities. So I think yesterday was a great learning opportunity where there's some really, really high level stuff out there. There's opportunities for a couple of the plays that we can do a little bit differently, but it's also, an effort to go out there and beat a good football team at your place and get a win. And, you never want to lose sight of that with quarterbacks young and old. You want to put your team in position to go win the game.
And as he heads into this final start out of these 7 games that he had, um, is there one particular swing thought that you're going to give him that he needs to go out and show you, in this final game that might really elevate himself a little bit?
Yeah, I'm probably not good at giving swing thoughts. You don't want swing thoughts from me, Mary Kay. But yeah, there's for him with when it comes to things that we're looking for him to improve upon. I think Coach Musgrave, Coach Reese do a great job with all positions, but in this case, the quarterback position of we're looking to improve upon this week, and sometimes those are very specific individual type things, whether it be footwork or ball placement on certain routes, operation, want to be better in this area at the line of scrimmage, all those things. I think you get great development and progress when you're specific about what you're looking for. So that happens really every week for our players.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll go to Jeff.
Hey, Kevin, when you think about coaching, you think about X's and O's, play calling, and all that. But what is the formula for getting these guys to keep playing hard when you were 3-12 before yesterday?
Yeah, Jeff, it's just we keep the focus on what's in front of us. I appreciate this group. Like I've told you guys, they've done everything I've asked them to do going back to the spring. I know what the results are, but I also know how these guys have worked. And that's just what we're about. We're about putting in the work and then going and competing like crazy on Sundays.
Is that a skill as a coach that you learn as you progress through your tenure?
Yeah, I'd put it back, Jeff, on just having the right players in the locker room that understand how important this game is.
All right, thanks.
All right, next we'll go to Tony.
Yeah, hi. Kevin, two questions. The first, do you agree with Miles after watching the film that the Steelers were overly concerned with him setting the sack record?
I can't get into that specific, Tony. I would tell you Miles and his ability affects every opponent's game plan, every single opponent that goes into the game. I promise you, on Wednesday morning, they have a picture of Myles Garrett and they say, we can't let this guy wreck the game. You know, that's what every offense does. They call them game wreckers. You identify the guys that make those disruptive plays. So he's the focal point of every offensive game plan going, from the beginning of time.
And Kevin, after two frustrating seasons here, do you wish to continue beyond this season as Browns coach?
Yeah, as you can imagine, my sole focus is on this game versus Cincinnati, but I also would tell you I'm privileged to have this job.
Okay.
All right, next we'll go to Joe.
Kevin, just following up on Tony, have there been discussions the past week or any indication on how things might shake out after the game next Sunday or Monday?
Yeah, I understand the question, Joe. I never get into those type of discussions. All I care about is finding a way to go 1-0 this week versus the Bengals.
Okay, and then just on this rookie group, I know we've talked about them a ton, but in terms of the group as a whole, what they've accomplished, and because I think you guys are on track for rookies leading in passing, receiving, and rushing. That's only happened one other time in the Super Bowl era where rookies have done that on a team. Have you been around a group with the Vikings or other teams that have had an effect on a team like this?
Yeah, I don't know that there's, you look around the league and you look at different rookie classes and, I know that there's always special groups that get pointed out after the fact years from now. My biggest thing, Joe, that I would tell you is just the way this group approaches the game. They don't approach it like rookies. This is not a group where I've had to be chasing them around the building to get them to do something or their focus is not where it needs to be. This is forget how good of players they are. This is as diligent a group of workers that I've ever been around. And I think that's a testament to these players. I think it's a testament to Andrew and crew identifying these players. I think it's a testament to their coaches and how they develop them. But at the core of it, this is a group that loves to work, loves to compete, loves to be out there with their teammates, and is willing to do anything that they have to do, or anything that the team needs them to do in order to win.
Just one more following up off of that. Was there a time like during rookie camp, mini camp, or training camp when you could tell this group would be as special as it has been?
Nothing comes to mind, Joe. But again, it's having been around different rookie classes. There's not usually this level of maturity right away with this group, especially considering we had two guys when we drafted them that were 20 years old, and they just have not handled themselves that way.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next we'll go to Cam.
Kevin, you mentioned the development of guys. I talked to Andre Schmidt last night, and he said that he thinks he's come a long way in that development, and credited you and Bubba and the special teams unit. What have you seen from him? I've asked about it before, but what have you seen from him from that week one and those early season struggles, and to now where he's been consistent for you in weather, in high pressure situations and long field goal attempts? Like how has that development really taken shape over these past several weeks?
Yeah, I think that's taken shape really over the longer run than that even, Cam. Just he had a really strong spring and summer, and I know you're not playing games yet, but then this season he's been consistent. Obviously, I know he's had a tough first game, like a lot of young players do, but confidence comes from demonstrated ability, and I've seen it in practice. I've seen him what he's capable of. So my confidence in the player hasn't wavered. Also recognizing that that's a hard job, and you're not going to be perfect at that job. So when you have a young player that is committed to playing, to kicking well for your team, you understand there's going to be ups and downs, but you also get to watch him work. You get to watch him in practice, and really, that's where the confidence comes from.
So many of the guys in the locker room yesterday kind of praised him for that development and for his commitment to his process. And it feels like that's been maybe across the board in other positions too, through some adversity and through struggles this season. What does it say about this locker room that through all of this, that these guys are so supportive of each other, so vocally supportive and supportive, in their actions on the field as well?
Yeah, I think that's just a locker room, Cam, that cares about each other. We have a bunch of good teammates on this team, and sometimes you got to pick your teammates up off the ground. Sometimes you got to push your teammates. You got to be there in a bunch of different ways to, get the best out of each other, and that includes supporting your teammates when you're going through something. And sometimes it's on the field, sometimes it's off the field, but you got to be there for your teammates.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go back to Mary Kay.
I don't have anything, sorry.
All right, last one from Scott.
Hey, Kevin, another question on the Shadur interception to Jerry. After the game, he said, he just wants to give his guys a chance, right? Give him a chance to make a play. So is it just a matter of knowing when it's the right situation to do that?
Without a doubt. And I think, that's the big thing with playing the quarterback position. There's going to be plays that are right on the border of, you're trying to make a play, you don't want to press, but there's some throws that you see in the NFL. I can think of a few, that I saw yesterday where that's a fine line between, hey, are you forcing that ball? Are you trying to make a play? So again, that's all, to me, those are all learning moments for Shadur, where there's going to be times, and there were times in that game where he made plays, off schedule. Just understanding, when it's time to live to fight another day on a second down and get us to a third and manageable. Those are all, to me, plays that just add up as you add more of these games to your repertoire, and they add up in terms of your decision making in total.